What up, everybody? It's your boy Shane G. We are back once again with another episode of Politics as Usual right here on the Ethos Media Network. Make sure you like, you share, you subscribe for all the latest updates. You want to catch up on entertainment, you want to catch up on the news, you want to catch up on politics. Ethos Media Network is your hub for all of that. You feel me? So let's get right into it, though. Today we're going to talk about Nancy Pelosi. We're not really going to talk about Nancy. We're going to talk about Paul Pelosi actually and the whole attack thing that happened. Um, I am reserving judgment on what actually happened. I'm not going to jump out in either direction and say, some of the people, have basically alluded to the fact that this might have been some sort of fling gone wrong type of situation with Paul Pelosi and with the other individual that we're going to be discussing. Um, but there's a few other interesting things that happened as a result of all of this that I want to discuss because it does sort of realign how we have to think about certain things. There's certain things that, especially over the last, I would say, couple of years, where we sort of just assume uh, honesty with certain groups, and we assume dishonesty with other groups, right? So, oftentimes, and I'm a minority, so I can speak on this. As a minority, a lot of times, as many situations as we're not given the benefit of the doubt on when it comes to systemic issues, when it comes to police issues, when it comes to financial issues, when it comes to education issues, when it comes to opportunity issues, we're on the lower rung when it comes to America, not based on ability, but based on circumstance, right? There's a lot of that, and I think we all pretty much can acknowledge that all of that is basically reality, right? But the issue is that sometimes people will expand that and say, okay, well, since you're in a minority group, therefore you're a good person and therefore you can't do this bad stuff, right? That's sort of, and if you're a bad person who's doing the bad things, then obviously you're not part of the group. You're something else. Oops. So that's sort of what they're getting at, right? Um, so what I want to do today is pretty much I just want to explore something that happened that I feel like the media and a lot of social media and a lot of these same type of people who would normally be really gung ho in favor of one group, um, they sort of just ignored it. And I don't know if they ignored it because it's fake. I don't know if they ignored it because it's real and it makes their case look bad. I don't know. I just want to explore some things with y'all and let's see what conclusions we come to. So, the first thing I want to show y'all is the ABC News article um, written basically speaking about how Paul Pelosi got attacked and all that stuff. So let's get into that first, and then we'll come back. So, suspect in Paul Pelosi attack pleads not guilty to state charges. Now I want you to just pay attention to how they speak about this individual the whole time in this article. This is by Meredith DeLiso. So David DePape will be back in court on February 23rd to set his trial date. David DePape, the man accused of attacking House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's husband with a hammer in their San Francisco home, pleaded not guilty to state charges on Wednesday. The arraignment in San Francisco Superior Court comes 2 weeks after a judge ruled that DePape will face trial for the October attack. Here's a picture of David. David DePape, 42, waived his right to a speedy trial. He will be back in court on February 23rd to set his trial date. DePape faces multiple state charges, including attempted murder, residential burglary, and assault with a deadly weapon. During an initial arraignment in November, DePape pleaded not guilty to the charges through his public defender and denied all allegations. DePape also faces federal charges of assault and attempted kidnapping. He pleaded not guilty to those charges last month and remains held without bail. DePape is accused of using a hammer to break into the Pelosi residence in the upscale Pacific Heights neighborhood of San Francisco just before 2 a.m. local time on October 28th. The intruder then went upstairs where 82-year-old Paul Pelosi was asleep, demanded to talk to Nancy, according to the federal complaint. Paul Pelosi reportedly told DePape that he needed to use the bathroom, allowing him to get his cell phone and to call 911. Two police officers arrived minutes later and entered the home, encountering DePape and Paul Pelosi struggling over a hammer, police said. The officers told the men to drop the hammer, at which time DePape allegedly gained control of the hammer and swung it, striking Paul Pelosi in the head. Now let's stop there, because that's not what I heard. I heard that Paul Pelosi actually came to the door, opened the door for the police. The guy was behind him in the house. The police walk in the front door with Paul Pelosi. Paul Pelosi turns away from them, goes back towards the guy. Then the guy hits him with the hammer. That's the version I heard. Y'all let me know what y'all heard. We'll continue. Paul Pelosi suffered a skull fracture and serious injuries to his right arm and hands, though he is expected to make a full recovery, Nancy Pelosi's spokesperson said following the attack. Mr. DePape will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law and held accountable for his heinous crimes, San Francisco District Attorney Brooke Jenkins said in a statement following Wednesday's arraignment. During a hearing earlier this month, prosecutors presented new evidence in the case, including the 911 call Paul Pelosi made the night of the attack, body camera footage from the responding officers, and the hammer that they said was used in the assault. DePape's public defender, Adam Lipson, had no comments about the case following the hearing, saying DePape is going to be fighting this case in court, not the hallway. All right. So that's the update that we got from Mr. Pelosi and from David DePape. Now, why did I stress the word he, him, his, all that kind of stuff? Gentleman, guy, man, those words, right? Well, this is what I want to bring up. And not that this is actually, well, you know what? Let me not say that. It is a big deal for people who don't use he and she pronouns. If you use they pronouns, this is a big deal because it's disrespectful to misgender you if you don't identify as the gender that you present as, right? So, just because this person has a beard, and just because this person presumably presents themselves as a man, right? That doesn't necessarily mean that they identify as being a man or that they themselves feel like they're a man, right? There's, and this is something, I don't know, but please educate me in the audience, but this is something that, I've more recently in life learned about, which is like gender fluidity and, people being non-binary and things like that, right? I didn't necessarily know what that was until a few years ago. Like, I literally thought everybody either went by he or she, or in some scientific, and when I say scientific, I don't mean anything mentally scientific. I mean physically, biologically scientific. When I say that, I mean there are some people obviously who, may be born with not as clear of whether they're a male or female. You get what I'm saying? So those people, I guess you could also consider like maybe they or whatever they chose to identify with more. That was always my mindset, until like a few years ago, until I met some people. I have some friends who don't necessarily identify as being male or female. They identify as they, they identify as being non-binary or gender fluid, or, there's different terms for it. I know one person who identifies as being trans, even though what you would normally think of as a trans person is not what pops up when you think of this person. When you think of this person, you would just look at them and assume that they're a girl or a woman. You know what I mean? But if you ask that person, they'll tell you to use every pronoun except the feminine ones. So it's interesting and it's a case by case basis, right? That's pretty much my point. So what that tells us though is that you have to take people at their word based on how they identify, right? Okay. Why am I saying all of this about the guy, about the person, I should say, who attacked Nancy Pelosi? I don't know if this is true, but I want to bring up an article from Substack for you guys. And it's just something that, hasn't been talked about really. And it's interesting. And it's very interesting. So let me bring this other screen up for y'all so that we can get into this part. Now, again, I don't even know who this guy is. I don't know the writer of this article, I don't know who this guy is. I don't know if he's credible. I'm looking at the website. It seems like a very one-sided website going in one direction. You know what I mean? As you can see from the advert right there, there's Mr. Ted Cruz, who we have no love for at this show. So let's see. Let's read. So Michael Schellenberger's gotten to the bottom of the Paul Pelosi story. Drug-induced psychosis. All right. As Twitchy reported on Saturday, MSNBC's Joe Scarborough tweeted his disgust that the attempted assassination of the Speaker of the House was published below the fold of the New York Times front page. Elon Musk buying Twitter was apparently a bigger story. Republicans are just going to get away with this sort of violence just like they did on January 6th because Donald Trump has everyone outnumbered on the truth. Well, Michael Schellenberger has a piece on Substack looking into the man who allegedly broke into Pelosi's San Francisco home and attacked Paul Pelosi with the hammer. And he says it has nothing to do with Q-Anon and lots to do with drugs. So that was another thing that they were saying, that this guy was a big Q-Anon guy, and that's why he went and attacked Pelosi, because he's a big Trumper, and he was convinced to do it, basically. So let's get into some of these tweets. The media are portraying the suspect in the attack of Nancy Pelosi's husband as a man fundamentally driven by right-wing ideology. But it's obvious to anybody who looks that what drove David DePape to violence was drug-induced paranoid psychosis. So let's see. Neighbors described DePape as a homeless drug addict with a politics that was, until recently, left-wing, but of secondary importance to his psychotic and paranoid behavior. As I discovered yesterday, this is Michael Schellenberger. He's at the actual residence of David. And as I discovered yesterday, DePape lived with a local notorious nudist in a Berkeley home, complete with a Black Lives Matter sign in the window, an LGBT rainbow flag, emblazoned with a marijuana symbol hanging from a tree. He has pictures here that you can see. 9/11 was an inside job. That's not necessarily a left-wing conspiracy. That's just, But that's interesting. Black Lives Matter, LGBT, marijuana leaves, that's usually lefty shit. I identify with all of those things. What I know about the family is that they're very radical activists. They seem very left. They are all about the Black Lives Matter movement, gay pride, but they're very detached from reality. They have called the cops on several of the neighbors, including us. That's a quote from one of their neighbors from the article. It's really weird to see that they are willing to be so aggressive towards somebody else who is also a lefty. A closer look reveals the characteristics of a homeless encampment, or what Europeans call an open drug scene. If you've ever seen the show The Wire, remember that one part where they were like, look, y'all can sell drugs on this block. If you leave this block, we're going to arrest you. But if y'all do all your business here and keep all the addicts over here, we're going to leave y'all alone. That's essentially what they're saying was set up in San Francisco at this guy's residence. I don't know if any of this is true. Again, this is from one Substack. It seemed to be really popular on Twitter. It was a thread that kind of gained some steam for a little bit, and then it just kind of disappeared. So that's why I wanted to bring it back up, just to get you guys' opinions. But let's continue. In the driveway, there's a broken down camper van. On the street is a yellow school bus, which neighbors said DePape occasionally stayed in. Both are filled with garbage typical of such structures and homeless encampments. There's some pictures for you. People come and go from the house and the vehicles, neighbors say, in part to partake in the use of a potent psychedelic drug, ibogaine. They used to go to Mexico and get this drug that's legal there and then bring it back here and treat people. Not all of the news media missed DePape's history of drug use, psychosis, and homelessness. CNN reported that a woman named Laura Hayes, who said she'd been working with DePape 10 years ago making hemp bracelets, said that he had been living in a storage shed. So there's corroboration from at least one big news source, CNN. He talks to angels, she said, and told her that there will be a hard time coming. Another woman, Linda Schneider, told CNN that she got to know DePape around 2014 and that he was still homeless, living in a storage unit, and using hard drugs. But much of the rest of the news media were swept up in the narrative that DePape was more like John Wilkes Booth, the fanatical but sane assassin of Abraham Lincoln, than John Hinckley Jr., the mentally ill man who shot Ronald Reagan. So this guy's argument is basically that the dude is basically more like John Hinckley Jr. than he ever was like John Wilkes Booth. But they're saying that the Democrats and in the media and everything are basically trying to paint him out like he was some mastermind that was about to assassinate, some high-level guy. That's pretty much the two opposing sides. In truth, DePape is much more like one of the hundreds of psychotic homeless people I've interviewed in recent years than the fanatical, climate ideologues who I've been writing about in recent weeks. Wrapped up in their obsession with MAGA Republicans, journalists have missed the real story. David DePape is not a microcosm of the political psychosis grouping America in general. Rather, he's a microcosm of the drug-induced psychosis grouping the West Coast in particular. So a guy in his underwear who was once involved in a nudist wedding broke into Pelosi's house with a hammer. Police arrived after being called on a well-being check at 2 a.m., walked in to find them struggling over the hammer, watched him assault Pelosi, and then arrested him. A guy in his underwear with a hammer managed to break into the home of the third person in line to the presidency, and police happened to arrive right as he assaulted Paul Pelosi after being called on a 2 a.m. wellness check. Definitely not incredibly weird at all. All right. Now, here's the thing. I thought it was going to actually say this in this article, and maybe I can find it really quickly. I'm going to see if I can. There was an article that brought up the fact that the gentleman was non-binary. And I just messed up right then even by saying it like that. That David is non-binary. Let's see if I can find it one more time, because that's actually a really interesting thing. This is why I wanted to bring this up. It seems like they've scrubbed everything off the internet that even had anything to do with that, which is wild. That was a thing for a while. Now they're saying, yeah, the only articles that are popping up now, this is really interesting actually, the only articles that are popping up now are basically the most recent articles saying that, what he said in jail, basically saying, I wish I had got more of them and blase splee. Here's the thing. There are plenty of articles out there that were saying that this person identifies, he even went to court, they even went to court. There's video of this. They even went to court, and the person said, I don't identify as being a man, I'm non-binary. They had a whole debate on either CNN or MSNBC. It was one of those two. They had a whole debate on whether or not this is real. So what are we doing? Are we taking it at people's word when they tell us, hey, I know I present a certain way, but I'm telling you that is not who I feel I am on the inside. So I'd like you to respect that and use these these other pronouns that do apply to me and not the ones that you think apply to me. At what point do we honor that, or do we say, that's a really convenient thing for you to get out of a hate crime type of situation, or, if there's any, for lack of a better term, hanky-panky going on between y'all, and you don't want it to seem like it's a scorn lover situation or something like that, then we can spin it into saying, hey, I'm not a man anyway. This couldn't be a gay thing, because that's what it was. That's what it was. I'm so happy that we brought it up. The gentleman's father, I keep calling him the gentleman because that's how the articles have portrayed him. I really don't know if this person is non-binary or not. That's sort of beside the point, though. The point is, we can't pick and choose when certain things are said and we're like, okay, we're going to believe this because it was said. Or other things are said and we're like, nah, that seems like a lie because it's too convenient. We have to pick. Either people can lie about these things or they cannot. And then we can do some deductive reasoning on a case-by-case basis. Is this person lying about this, or do they really feel this way? Is this person lying about this, or do they really feel this way? That's really all I'm trying to get down to. The whole point of this segment is don't ever believe anybody 100% blanket with no evidence. That's pretty much the whole thing. I don't believe this Michael Substack story. I don't believe the Pelosi version of events. I don't believe that the dude is non-binary. I don't believe that they aren't non-binary. I don't know what to believe on this. I'm waiting for evidence. That's my point. Stop jumping to conclusions before we have all the information. People lie. Good people lie. Bad people lie. Bad people lie more. Doesn't matter. Everyone does it. So that's the point of today's show. Stop believing everything that you see. There's going to be a lot of contradictory information out there. David's dad went on the news after... No, I'm sorry. This was a different situation. This is a different situation. It was the Colorado shooter. That's what it was. I just mixed up those stories. I'm so happy that I talked myself through this with y'all, but the point still stands. It was the nightclub shooter of the gay club. His dad went and said, wait, is my son gay? And then they were like, nah, he's non-binary. And he was like, oh, well, as long as he's not gay. Like, that's what happened. I mixed those two stories up. I apologize, y'all, but I'm going for 20 minutes already. I'm not about to restart this. So, but, again, the point of it is, just because somebody says something to try to get themselves out of trouble doesn't make it true. Just because people use certain tropes, i.e. being a minority, things like that. Like, just watch out for all that stuff, because people like to use that as a ploy, so that way when some real shit happens to the minority community, it's a lot easier to dismiss, because it's like, oh, remember that last shit y'all lied about? You get what I mean? So, also, just because somebody is on, quote-unquote, your side, the Pelosi's are Democrats. If you consider the left wing to be the Democrats, I do not, but if you consider that to be the representation of left-wing politics in America, then instantly, as soon as Pelosi got attacked, your whole thing was defend Pelosi. This guy's evil. He's probably a Trumper. He's probably the other. He's probably et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Well, if that dude, Michael Substack, is correct at all, which it seems like he corroborated on CNN with a few sources, or at least some of the people from CNN interviewed the same people he did. Either way, if that's the case, then what are we doing? What are we doing? Seems like that what we've been told about this person is not true. Not saying everything hasn't been true. Maybe I don't know. There's a lot left open about this story, is the whole point. So don't believe everything you read. Don't believe everything you see. Wait for the evidence to come out. Wait for things to make sense. If somebody's telling you something that just seems like it doesn't make any sense, it probably doesn't. So, again, my bad for mixing up those two stories. This is Michael, the person he wrote about David. David does not appear to be non-binary or anything like that. I mixed up that story with somebody else who committed a violent act and then used that as an excuse. That's what it was. They were trying to get out of it being a hate crime for shooting the gay club. So they said they were non-binary. That's what happened. So, two different stories. Same method though. People will throw ideology on you just to make you the other, to make you the bad guy, when that may not be the case. Because apparently this dude was very left wing. BLM flags, gay pride flags, LGBT flags, weed flags. It's all very left wing stuff. So, y'all give me y'all opinion. You let me know what you think. Did is the media doing everything they can to just make this look like some evil Trumper that just went crazy and did something to one of our innocent Democratic leaders? Or is there more to the story? Y'all let me know. This is Shane G. This is Politics as Usual right here on the Ethos Media Network. Make sure you like, you share, you subscribe. We will catch y'all next week. Happy 30th birthday to my little brother. Peace.